Well, this is just fantastic, I muttered, staring at the emergency transmission blinking on my command console. Nothing says have a wonderful day quite like a code red alert during the annual Galactic Peace Celebration. I am Commander Pax Laurenti of the Nizarian Defense Fleet, and today was supposed to be my day off, the first in 27 cycles. But no, some unidentified ship just had to wander into Sector 9, and naturally, I'm the one who gets called in. The Grand Council chambers buzzed with the panicked voices of 24 different species. Ambassador Quell, with his 4 eyes bulging in different directions, a trait I never found particularly trustworthy, was already proclaiming doom from his hovering platform. Order. I demand order. Supreme Counselor Vazari slammed her ceremonial staff against the floor. The boom echoed through the chamber, silencing even the most anxious Moldovan delegates. Commander Laurenti will explain the situation. Thanks for that. Nothing like being thrown to the proverbial space wolves. I cleared my throat and activated the holographic display. At 0600 Galactic Standard Time, Border Patrol Unit 47 detected an unknown vessel entering restricted space. The vessel does not match any known signatures in our database. Is it a new Tralaxian design? Asked Defense Minister Jor, her antenna twitching with suspicion. Negative. The energy signature is completely foreign. I enlarged the scan data, and it's primitive. Almost laughably so. This got a few chuckles from the Council. We Nizarians, along with our 17 allied species, have dominated this galaxy for over 10,000 years. Our technology is unmatched, our military might unquestioned. Our bureaucracy, unfortunately, unparalleled. Primitive how? Counselor Vazari leaned forward, her scales shimmering under the Council lights. The vessel appears to use a form of nuclear fusion we abandoned centuries ago. Its hull is composed of basic alloys. Communication attempts have been met with unusual responses. Define unusual, Ambassador Quell demanded. I sighed. They sent us what appears to be mathematical equations, followed by something our translators identify as music, and then asked if we had any good food on board. The chamber erupted in laughter. Even I had to smile. Whoever these beings were, they clearly posed no threat to the mighty Galactic Coalition. How spectacularly wrong we were. I recommend we send a standard contact team, I concluded, already mentally returning to my interrupted vacation. Likely just another pre-FTL species that stumbled upon a wormhole or ancient technology. We'll guide them home, wipe their memories, and be done with it by dinner. The Council nodded in agreement, their momentary concern evaporating. None of us realized that this encounter would change everything we thought we knew about our place in the universe. The vessel's name, as we would soon learn, was the Defiant. A fitting name, as it turned out, for the ship that would defy all our expectations. And the beings who crewed it, they called themselves humans. Our diplomatic fleet, 3 light cruisers and my command vessel approached the unknown ship with standard protocol precision. I'd done this dance a dozen times before, surround the wayward vessel, display overwhelming force, then graciously offer assistance. Works every time. Visual contact in 30 seconds. Commander, my navigation officer, Lieutenant Riza, announced. Put it on the main screen, I ordered, straightening my uniform. First impressions matter, even with primitives. The screen flickered, and I nearly choked on my stimulant drink. That can't be right, I whispered. Recalibrate the sensors. Already did, sir. 3 times. Riza's voice had an unusual tremor. That's accurate. The vessel wasn't the small scout ship our sensors initially indicated. It was enormous, dwarfing our command cruiser by at least 6 times. The initial readings had somehow only detected a small portion of it. How in the 7 moons did we miss something that big? I demanded. Science Officer Tavik adjusted his viewing apparatus. It appears they have some form of sensor scattering technology. Our scanners only registered what they wanted us to see. Not so primitive after all. Open a communication channel. All languages, all frequencies. The human vessel hung in space before us, its design unlike anything in our records. While Nazarian ships featured elegant curves and biological-inspired forms, this human ship was all hard angles and protruding structures. What we initially thought were aesthetic choices, odd bulges and protrusions along the hull, were clearly weapon ports. Lots of them. This is Commander Pax Laurenti of the Galactic Coalition. We welcome you to our territory and offer assistance. Silence stretched for an uncomfortably long moment. Then, a voice, speaking perfect Coalition standard, "Hey there. Captain Eleanor Blackwood of the Earth vessel Defiant. Nice neighborhood you've got here. Do you guys always greet visitors with armed warships, or are we special?" I blinked in confusion. This response violated every diplomatic protocol in the manual. "We apologize for any misunderstanding. Standard procedure for unidentified vessels." "No worries. We'd do the same. Probably with more guns, though." A sound came through that our translators identified as laughter. I exchanged glances with my bridge crew. Was this some form of psychological warfare? "We are sending you formal identification protocols now," I continued, trying to regain control of the situation. "Got him. Hey, quick question, is that a Type 4 plasma cannon on your lead ship? Those things are adorable, like little baby weapons." My weapons officer nearly fell out of her chair. "Sir," Tavik whispered urgently, "our scans are finally penetrating their hull. The energy readings are impossible, and there are life signs for at least 5,000 beings on board." The implications were staggering. A vessel this size, with technology that could fool our most advanced sensors, crewed by beings who treated our most powerful weapons as toys. So the human captain continued cheerfully, "Should we come to you, or are you folks coming over here? We've got coffee brewing, it's a human beverage. Fair warning, it might make your tentacles twitch if you have any." After a hurried conference with my senior staff, I made my decision. "Captain Blackwood, I will lead a diplomatic delegation to your vessel, if acceptable." "Fantastic. Docking Bay 7 is open for you. Follow the green lights, and don't mind Crusher, that's our security mech. He looks mean, but he's a softie." As I prepared my team, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were about to discover that the galaxy was a much more complicated place than the Coalition had ever imagined. Our shuttle docked with a gentle thud against the massive human vessel. I'd brought 5 of my best officers, Tavik, my science officer, Security Chief Marazol, whose combat reflexes were legendary, Cultural Specialist Penda, Medical Officer Jax, and Communications Expert Nilo, all veterans of first contact situations. None of us were prepared for what awaited. "Weapons check," I whispered as the airlock cycled. "Sir," Mara said hesitantly, "my scanner shows our weapons have been disabled." "What? How?" The airlock hissed open, revealing a corridor bathed in bright, unnaturally white light. Standing there, arms spread wide, was a bipedal being with pale skin and a facial display of teeth that our cultural database suggested was either a threat or a greeting. "Welcome aboard the Defiant." The human was shorter than I expected, with a covering of artificial materials in various colors. "I'm Captain Eleanor Blackwood. You must be Commander Laurenti?" She stumbled slightly over the pronunciation. "Hope you don't mind, but we neutralized your weapons, safety protocols and all that. They'll work fine once you're back on your ship." My mandibles clicked in surprise. They'd remotely disabled our most secure technology without even alerting us. "Understood," I managed. "This is Science Officer Tavik, Security Chief Zol, Cultural Specialist Penda, Medical Officer Jax, and Communications Expert Nilo," she interrupted, pointing to each of my crew correctly. Atlas gave me the rundown. "Atlas?" A disembodied voice answered from all around us, automated tactical logistics and strategic system. "Hello. Whitcar, Commander Laurenti and delegation. I am the artificial intelligence that assists in operating this vessel. I have learned 247 of your languages in the past hour. Your dialect has a fascinating subharmonic structure. My team exchanged nervous glances. Our most advanced AIs required entire planetary installations. This one was contained within a single ship. Captain Blackwood led us through corridors teeming with humans of various sizes and coloration. They all stopped to stare at us, some making those teeth-baring expressions, others extending their upper appendages in what seemed like greetings. One approached me directly, thrust a steaming container into my hands and said, "Coffee. Best thing humans ever invented. Well, besides nuclear weapons and pizza." I nearly dropped the container. "Nuclear weapons are celebrated in your culture?" The human laughed. Figure of speech, though they did help us end our last world war. Anyway, careful with that coffee, it's hot. Hot? Jax, our medical officer, scanned the liquid. This beverage is 92 degrees. It would cause severe internal burns to most species. Captain Blackwood shrugged. "Yeah, that's how we like it." "Atlas, what's the ambient temperature on their homeworld?" "The Nizarian standard temperature is 12 degrees Celsius, Captain," the AI responded. "Ha. No wonder you guys look chilly. Should I turn up the heat in this section?" Tavik's scientific curiosity overcame his caution. "You consume potentially lethal heated substances for pleasure?" "Sure do," Blackwood grinned, taking a long sip from her own container. "Comes from evolving on a death world, I guess." "Death world?" I managed to ask. "Oh yeah, Earth is brutal. Extreme temperature variations from -50 to 50 degrees Celsius, atmospheric oxygen that causes oxidative damage to cells, constant radiation from our sun, gravity that'll crush most species, natural disasters like hurricanes and volcanoes, predators that could tear you limb from limb, the works. That's why we build our ships like this. If it can survive Earth conditions, it can survive anything." "And you evolved there?" "Naturally?" Penda, our cultural specialist, looked faint. "Yup, made us pretty hardy." "Atlas, what's the atmospheric pressure here compared to their homeworld?" "Currently at 1.2 Earth atmospheres, Captain. Nizarian standard is 0.7 Earth atmospheres. Their bodies are experiencing approximately 70% more pressure than their norm." I suddenly realized why I felt so heavy, so compressed. These humans lived under crushing pressure that they considered normal. "Wait," I said, trying to process this information. "You exist under these conditions constantly? And you consider this comfortable?" Captain Blackwood nodded enthusiastically. "This is actually our relaxed setting. You should see our high-gravity combat training rooms. Now, let me show you the mess hall. Hope you can eat our food. We've got synthesizers that might be able to whip up something for you folks." As we followed her deeper into the massive ship, one thought kept repeating in my mind: what kind of species emerges from such a hellscape? And what does that mean for the rest of us? After the unsettling discovery about human biology, Captain Blackwood led us to what she called the bridge, their command center. Unlike our sleek, minimalist control rooms with neural interfaces and holographic displays, this space bustled with activity. Dozens of humans sat at physical control stations, pressing buttons and speaking commands aloud. How inefficient, I thought. Until I realized why. "You're wondering about our old-fashioned setup," Blackwood said, reading my expression perfectly. "Atlas could run the ship alone, but we prefer redundancy. Can't hack what isn't connected, can't disable what has manual overrides." "A wise precaution," I offered, though most species in the Coalition abandoned such concerns centuries ago. Blackwood exchanged a look with her second in command, a tall human called Jacobson. "Yeah, about that. We know." "Know what? Exactly?" "About the Coalition. About the 17 species. About the Nizarian superiority complex." She gestured to a large screen that suddenly displayed images of our homeworlds, our fleet deployments, even the Grand Council chambers. "We've been watching you all for about 40 years now. My legs nearly gave out. Impossible. Our detection systems are based on quantum pulse technology developed by the Zithri about 300 years ago, Blackwood finished for me. We figured out how to slip through those detection fields 20 years back. We've had observation posts throughout Coalition space for decades. My security chief, Mara, moved instinctively toward her disabled weapon. Your spies. Researchers, corrected Blackwood. We wanted to understand the neighborhood before introducing ourselves formally. Standard procedure for potentially hostile environments. The Galactic Coalition is not hostile, I objected. We've brought peace and stability to this galaxy for 10 millennia. Peace through overwhelming military force, said Jacobson. We've seen how you pacify developing worlds. I couldn't deny it. Coalition history was filled with necessary interventions against species deemed too aggressive or unpredictable. Let me show you something, Blackwood said, motioning us to follow. We proceeded down a corridor that seemed to stretch for kilometers. The scale of this vessel was difficult to comprehend. This ship, Blackwood explained as we walked, is actually one of our smaller long-range explorers. Most of our technology evolved from necessity. When you live on a death world, you either innovate or die. She waved her hand at a wall, which became transparent, revealing a cavernous space below. My entire team gasped simultaneously. Row upon row of missiles, drones and weapons platforms filled the chamber. Some I recognized variations of Coalition designs, but clearly more advanced. Others were completely foreign. One section held what appeared to be self-contained atmospheric terraforming bombs weapons strictly forbidden by Coalition law. This is just one of 12 armament bays, Blackwood said casually. Defense grid is separate, as are the hunter-killer autonomous systems. Why I struggled to find words. Why would explorers need such weaponry? Same reason you approached us with 3 warships, she replied with that disturbing teeth display. Universe is a dangerous place. We continued to another section where Blackwood pressed her hand against a panel. A holographic star map appeared, vastly more detailed than any Coalition chart. Looking for something? She asked. Tavik stepped forward, scanning the map. Your homeworld. Earth, you called it? Won't find it there, Jacobson said. It's outside Coalition space. Way outside. That's impossible, Tavik objected. The Coalition has mapped the entire galaxy. Has it, though? Blackwood raised an eyebrow. Atlas, show them. The map zoomed out, revealing a spiral galaxy I recognized as our own. Then it kept zooming out, showing neighboring galaxies, then a vast celestial expanse I'd never seen charted. Earth is here. Blackwood pointed to a solar system in an entirely different spiral arm. About 60,000 light-years from Coalition space. But that would mean that we developed interstellar travel independently. Yes, she confirmed. And intergalactic travel about 100 years ago. We've been exploring ever since. The implications crashed over me like a tidal wave. A species from a death world, with advanced technology developed independently, capable of intergalactic travel, heavily armed, and with detailed knowledge of our civilization that they'd gathered in secret. How many? I managed to ask. How many ships like this do you have? Blackwood's expression softened slightly. This is just one Explorer Division, Commander. Earth Defense Fleet currently maintains about 500 vessels of this class. Our military ships are substantially larger. 500. Each with enough firepower to challenge a Coalition battle group. And your intentions toward the Coalition? I asked, dreading the answer. That, Blackwood said, depends entirely on you. You look concerned, Commander, Captain Blackwood said, her casual tone contrasting sharply with the existential dread gripping my entire delegation. Perhaps a practical demonstration would help clarify our capabilities. Atlas, prepare the simulation chamber. Simulation prepared, Captain. The AI responded instantly. We followed her to a spherical room where the walls, floor, and ceiling disappeared as we entered, replaced by a perfect recreation of space, specifically the sector where our vessels were currently holding position. This, Blackwood began, is a real-time tactical simulation based on current positioning and capabilities. Atlas will run scenarios using actual performance metrics. Nothing theoretical. My science officer, Tavik, studied the simulation with professional interest. Aggressive resolution. Our training simulators require full immersion suits. Outdated tech, Jacobson commented with a dismissive wave. We moved beyond neural interfaces once we realized the security vulnerabilities. Before I could defend coalition technology, Blackwood spoke again. Atlas, Scenario 1, Standard Coalition Approach Vector, Aggressive Posture. The simulation shifted, showing our 3 ships moving into attack formation against the Defiant. Coalition vessels charging weapons, Atlas narrated. Time to optimal firing position, 17 seconds. What happened next defied comprehension. Rather than evasive maneuvers, the Defiant simply flickered. One moment it was there, the next it was behind our formation. What you just witnessed is our phase shift drive, Blackwood explained nonchalantly. Moves us through a temporary dimensional fold. Can't go far, but perfect for tactical repositioning. Dimensional folding is purely theoretical, Tavik protested. The energy requirements alone would be prohibitive using your power generation methods, Jacobson finished. We solved that problem with our fusion antimatter hybrid cores. The simulation continued with our ships turning to engage. The Defiant's response was both elegant and terrifying. Points of light emerged from its hull, thousands of them swarming toward our vessels like luminescent insects. Autonomous defense drones, Blackwood commented. Each contains what you'd call a small tactical nuclear device, though that's selling them short. They're actually targeting packages deployed, Atlas interrupted. Coalition vessels disabled in 4.3 seconds, with 97.2% survival rate for crew members. The simulation showed our ships drifting powerless. Not destroyed, simply rendered completely inert. We try to avoid unnecessary casualties, Blackwood said, as if discussing a dietary preference. The drones can selectively disable specific systems while leaving life support intact. Mara, my security chief, finally found her voice. Those aren't defensive weapons. They're first strike capabilities. Blackwood shrugged. Potato. We call them operational safeguards. Perhaps, I suggested carefully, we could see some of your actual defensive systems? Sure thing. Atlas, show the commander what happens when someone tries to board us uninvited. The simulation shifted to show an interior corridor similar to those we'd walked through. Armed figures, coalition special forces by their appearance moved efficiently through the passage. Suddenly, the corridor itself seemed to come alive. Walls shifted, creating dead ends. Floor sections dropped away. And most disturbing of all, nearly invisible filaments descended from the ceiling, wrapping around the boarding party with lightning speed. Containment webs, Jacobson explained. Non-lethal, usually, unless they resist too much. The simulation showed the captured boarders being efficiently packaged like food items and deposited in a collection area. The ship has over 2,000 reconfigurable sections, Blackwood added. Atlas can transform the Defiant into a literal maze. No boarding party has ever reached a critical area. Penda, our cultural specialist, looked physically ill. Your entire vessel is a weapon. No, Blackwood laughed, clapping Penda on the shoulder. It's an explorer ship with reasonable precautions. You should see our actual warships. Those are reasonable precautions, I asked, unable to keep the disbelief from my voice. Of course, Blackwood said cheerfully. When you grow up on a planet where even the plant life might try to digest you, you learn not to take chances. These are just basic safety features. Like locking your door at night, you know? I didn't know, and based on the expressions of my team, neither did they. We had just discovered that what we considered doomsday weapons, humans considered locked doors. After the simulation, Captain Blackwood led us to what she called a conference room. Unlike the sterile, formal diplomatic chambers of coalition vessels, this space featured a large wooden table, actual organic material, surrounded by cushioned chairs and adorned with small potted plants. A viewport revealed the vastness of space and our own vessels in the distance. "Please, make yourselves comfortable," Blackwood gestured to the chairs. "Coffee? Tea? Something stronger? We've got some excellent scotch." "Perhaps," I suggested, trying to regain some semblance of diplomatic control, "we should discuss formal relations between your species and the Galactic Coalition." "Sure thing." Blackwood plopped into a chair and propped her feet on the table, a posture our cultural databases identified as extremely casual, perhaps even disrespectful. Though I should mention we're already in talks with the Tralaxians and the Outer Rim Confederacy. My mandibles clicked in shock. The Tralaxians? They're our primary rivals. Exactly why they were eager to chat, Jacobson said, entering with a tray of various containers. Nothing motivates diplomatic outreach like the fear your enemies might get there first. This was catastrophic. The Tralaxians had been challenging coalition dominance for centuries. If they secured an alliance with these humans, the coalition offers significant advantages. I began my prepared speech. 10,000 years of stability, shared technological development, protection from. "Yeah, about that protection thing," Blackwood interrupted, accepting a steaming mug from Jacobson. "We're not really looking for protection. More like mutual non-aggression." Non-aggression. But we have no hostile intentions toward Earth. "Good to hear," she smiled. "Then you'll have no problem with our MAD protocols." "MAD protocols?" Penda asked hesitantly. MAD, mutually assured destruction, Blackwood clarified. Old Earth concept. Basically, if you attack us, we ensure everyone loses. Keeps things peaceful. "You would destroy yourselves in retaliation?" Tavik looked horrified. No, Blackwood laughed. "We'd destroy the aggressors, but the damage would be so severe that no one would consider it a win. Hence, mutual destruction. It's actually prevented wars on Earth for centuries." "That's barbaric," Mara whispered. "We prefer pragmatic," Jacobson corrected. "Hasn't failed us yet." I struggled to process their casual discussion of apocalyptic deterrence. Perhaps we could discuss cultural exchange instead. The coalition values diversity of thought, and... Great idea. Blackwood brightened. We brought gifts. She produced small packages for each of us. Mine contained a black liquid in a clear container labeled Coca-Cola and a wrapped item called a cheeseburger. "Earth delicacies," she explained. "Try them." Jack scanned the items with his medical device and paled. "Commander, the liquid contains enough stimulants to send a Nizarian into cardiac arrest, and the food item has sodium levels that would." "Oh right, different biologies." Blackwood took back the items. "Sorry about that." "Killed any diplomats lately, Jacobson?" "Not this week, Captain," he replied with complete seriousness. I couldn't tell if they were joking. Attempting to salvage the meeting, I presented our standard first contact diplomatic package. This contains information about coalition membership, responsibilities, and benefits. We would, of course, need to discuss your integration into our existing power structure and... Power structure? Blackwood repeated, raising an eyebrow. "I think there's a misunderstanding here, Commander. We're not looking to join your coalition as subordinates. All new species begin at associate status," I explained. "It's standard procedure for..." "Yeah, that's not going to work for us," she interrupted again. "We're thinking more along the lines of equal partnership or nothing at all." In the audacity, no species had ever demanded equal status upon first contact. "Captain Blackwood," I said carefully, "the coalition has protocols established over millennia. Exceptions cannot be made simply because we could reduce your fleet to scrap metal with a thought," she finished, still smiling pleasantly. Look, Commander, I get the whole rules are rules thing. But where I come from, rules change when the situation changes. And your situation has definitely changed. The worst part was, she was right. So here's what we're thinking, Captain Blackwood said, activating a holographic display over the conference table. A mutual defense agreement. No coalition membership, no Earth subordination. Just a simple pact. You don't mess with us, we don't mess with you, and we both come running if the other calls for help. I stared at the proposed treaty terms floating in the air. They were shockingly straightforward, almost childlike in their simplicity, yet undergirded with implications that would reshape galactic politics forever. We need to confer, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. Privately. Sure thing, Blackwood nodded cheerfully. Use this room. Jacobson and I will grab some lunch. Take all the time you need, well, not all the time. I've got a handball match at 1800 hours. After they left, my team erupted into barely controlled panic. This is unprecedented, Tavik hissed. They're demanding equal status with a 10,000-year-old galactic power. They have the technological capability to enforce their demands, Mara pointed out grimly. Did you see those weapon systems? Nilo, our communications expert, had been unusually quiet until now. We have to consider the alternative. If they ally with the Tralaxians, the coalition would face an enemy with superior technology and intimate knowledge of our defenses. I finished the thought. Can we trust them? Penda asked. Their culture is bizarre, unpredictable. We may not have a choice, Jack said quietly. We debated furiously for nearly an hour, running probability scenarios and considering political implications. Eventually, we reached a grim consensus: resistance would be futile. The humans held all the advantages. When we called them back, Blackwood and Jacobson returned with several other crew members. They were all sweaty and flushed. Sorry for the delay, Blackwood said, breathing heavily. Decided to squeeze in some recreational combat while waiting. Recreational combat? I asked hesitantly. Just a quick boxing match, she explained, rubbing her jaw where a bruise was forming. Jacobson has a mean right hook. You voluntarily injure each other for enjoyment? Penda looked horrified. Sure, builds character. You should see our extreme sports-based jumping, free solo climbing, bull riding. Good stuff. Jax quietly adjusted his translator, certain he must be misunderstanding. We've considered your proposal, I said, steering back to diplomacy. While unusual, we believe it merits consideration by the full council. However, I must ask, why not simply conquer? You clearly have the capability. Blackwood looked genuinely surprised. Conquer? Why would we want to do that? Sounds like a lot of paperwork. Administration is inefficient, Jacobson added seriously. We tried conquering each other on Earth for millennia. Total pain in the ass. Besides, Blackwood continued, we're explorers, not colonizers. We're looking for friends, trading partners, maybe people to share a beer with. Not subjects. Beer? Nilo queried. Another Earth beverage. Fermented grain. Gives you a nice buzz. You intentionally consume neurotoxins? Tavik couldn't hide his shock. Friday night tradition. Blackwood grinned. Look, Commander, here's the deal. We don't want your territory or resources. Earth has plenty. We want knowledge, cultural exchange, maybe some cool alien music, and mutual security, because the universe is a dangerous place. That's all. I looked at my team's faces and saw my own realization mirrored there. These humans weren't brutal conquerors. They were something far more dangerous, unpredictable, technologically superior beings who didn't even follow the established rules of interstellar power dynamics. We will convey your proposal to the council, I said formally. Awesome. Blackwood clapped her hands together. Now, who's up for a tour of the recreation deck? We've got a zero-G dodgeball tournament starting in 20 minutes. The Grand Council chamber had never been so silent. 17 species, over 200 representatives, and not a single whisper, as my report concluded. I stood before them, exhausted after the most consequential first contact in coalition history, waiting for the inevitable explosion of questions and objections. Supreme Counselor Vizari broke the silence first. "Commander Laurenti, are you suggesting we simply accept these terms? From a species we had never even heard of until today?" "With all due respect, Counselor," I replied, "I am suggesting we don't have much choice." The chamber erupted. Ambassador Quell's 4 eyes bulged in different directions simultaneously, a feat I'd never witnessed before. Defense Minister Jor's antennae coiled so tightly they nearly snapped. Representatives from a dozen worlds shouted questions and accusations. "They must be bluffing," bellowed the Trogarian delegate. "Have they provided proof of these capabilities?" demanded another. I activated the data crystal containing the recordings from our visit. The holographic display showed the Defiance weapons systems, the simulation results, and most damning of all, the detailed scans they had of our homeworlds and defense grids. "This is one ship," I emphasized as horrified murmurs spread through the chamber. "They claim to have 500 similar vessels, plus dedicated military craft that are substantially larger and better armed. And according to Captain Blackwood, this is just their Explorer division." "Could we neutralize this threat?" Defense Minister Jor asked quietly. "With what?" I spread my hands. "Their technological advantage is overwhelming. Their ship can phase through space itself. Their AI makes our most advanced systems look like children's toys. And they've been watching us for decades while we had no idea they existed." "Perhaps," suggested Ambassador Quell, "if we combined forces with the Tralaxians." "The Tralaxians are already in negotiations with them," I interrupted, "as is the Outer Rim Confederacy." That silenced the chamber again. The implications were obvious. Whoever allied with humans first would gain an insurmountable advantage. "There is one more thing," I added. "When I asked Captain Blackwood why they don't simply conquer us, given their capabilities, she seemed genuinely puzzled by the question. They appear to have no imperial ambitions whatsoever." "That's hard to believe," Counselor Vizari said carefully. "I thought so too," I admitted, "but all evidence suggests they're telling the truth. They genuinely seem more interested in cultural exchange than conquest. They invited my delegation to something called a barbecue before we left." "A torture ritual?" gasped a junior counselor. "A cooking method," I corrected, "though the specific foods they prepared would be lethal to most of us. They consumed them voluntarily. For pleasure." The council spent 6 hours debating. Reports from other border sectors confirmed human vessels had been spotted across coalition space, all maintaining non-aggressive postures but clearly capable of devastating force. In the end, the vote was unanimous. The human terms would be accepted. 3 days later, I stood beside Counselor Vizari as she formally welcomed Captain Blackwood and an Earth diplomatic team to coalition headquarters. The irony wasn't lost on anyone present. The species we had initially dismissed as primitive was, in fact, so advanced that we were grateful they weren't hostile. "Looking forward to working with you folks," Blackwood said, shaking Vizari's hand firmly. "Oh, and good news, the Earth Council loved your counterproposal about the cultural exchange program. We're already preparing to send teachers, artists, and scientists." "We are honored," Vizari managed, her scales rippling with barely controlled anxiety. As we escorted them to the ceremonial banquet, Blackwood fell into step beside me. "Your council seems nervous, Commander." "They're adjusting to a new reality," I admitted, "one where we're not alone at the top of the technological hierarchy." She laughed. "You weren't there to begin with. The Defiant is just one of our Explorer-class vessels. There are 7 more divisions like ours, each mapping different sectors of this galaxy." 7 more. I nearly stumbled. "You mean?" "Yep. The Defiant is one of about 4,000 human ships currently exploring known space," she said casually. "And that's just our civilian fleet." As I watched her walk ahead to join Visari, I couldn't help but wonder what the galaxy would look like a century from now. One thing was certain: the Coalition's 10,000 years of unchallenged dominance had come to an end. Not with a war, as we had always feared, but with a handshake and an invitation to a barbecue from a species that lived on a death world and thought dimensional phase shifting was a reasonable defense mechanism. The universe, it turned out, had a sense of humor after all.